Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Hi, I'm Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope. So here in Australia, I believe we're suffering. We're currently suffering under poor leadership. And I think we've had an outbreak of poor leadership probably for the best part of a decade. We've had poor leadership within our federal governments. We currently have an extremely weak, feckless leader in Anthony Albanese. We have senators that seem to stand up and care more about the rights and issues in the Middle East than they care about Australians. We have senators that they're just disingenuous in what they say. They seem to be intent on dividing the nation, dividing Australia. They constantly want to look back and reinvent history, but never want to really talk about actual history. They never want to acknowledge real history. Uh, Far more interested in the issues in the Middle East, and they're not honest in their reflections of the Middle East and the issues that are there. We have extremely weak leadership when it comes to state premiers, police commissioners over multiple states. For instance, the former police commissioner in Queensland, the current police commissioner in New South Wales. It just seems like we have an epidemic of poor leadership and leadership failures within this nation. And I can't I can't really put my finger. I've been trying to work out why, how we got here. How did we vote in so many of these poor leaders? And then others that are just bureaucrats. How did they manage to rise through the ranks and get these positions of power where they are decision makers? And yet, so many times it seems like either they cannot make, not just not make the right decision. So many times it seems like they cannot make any decision. It was pointed out to me. I'd already been thinking about this, but it was pointed out to me that we've had this firebombing with a synagogue down south. I'm in Queensland, so we've had this bombing of the synagogue, the Jewish synagogue, and why did it take Anthony Albanese so long to realize that this was a terrorist attack? Why did it take so long? And why is it that we're um, so intent on allowing protests in favor of the Palestinian movement? We it seems like we'll just allow protesters to get up and protest about the Palestinian movement and in favor of the Palestinian movement, in favor of Hamas. Though they can get up and say whatever they want in support of Hamas, Hezbollah, get up there and not tell the truth when they're protesting. And we'll allow all that. We'll allow destruction on our streets, and none of it's really called out, emphatically called out. Uh, Anti-Semitism has been allowed to grow, to prosper in this state, in this nation, especially in New South Wales, Sydney, and Melbourne. Anti-Semitism, I believe, is rife down there. And our politicians just will not call it out. We have politicians like Lydia Thorpe, who constantly reinvents history. She's got, from the things that she says, she's obviously got either she's got no idea or she's just flat out lying when it comes to the Palestinian cause that she stands up for. And then she's constantly equating the Australian Indigenous cause, you want to say, or just Australian Indigenous people and the history of the Indigenous people here in this nation, constantly equating that with the Palestinian movement. And they love the slogan. What is it? always was, always will be, and from the river to the sea. Two slogans which I honestly don't think they really have any place in Australia at all. Neither of those slogans, even the Indigenous slogan, always was, always will be. And if you don't like that, well, whatever. But yeah, and then you've got other politicians who, quite frankly, I think if you're a senator, well, quite frankly, I think that if you weren't born in this nation, I don't think you should be allowed to run for a political appointment here. I just don't think it should be allowed. You need to be born here. You need to have a stake in the nation, and you need to be able to be, well, you really do need to be honest with your own political affiliations and your own ideologies. And if you're more interested in the nation where you came from than you are in representing the nation of Australia and the people in Australia, well, then go back to the nation where you came from. I'm sorry. If you're here and then you want to serve in politics, but then all you want to carry on about is the people of Palestine, a two-state solution, all that rhetoric, go back to Palestine. Feel free. But you don't come here to Australia. I just don't think if you're not born here, you don't get to run for politics in this nation. That's how I feel about it. Anyway, so getting back to the topic at hand. So poor leadership. I can't really put my finger on the exact cause of it all. I think a lot of it is spiritual. Uh, if you're looking at it from a Christian point of view, I think a lot of it relates back to what the Bible says in Romans chapter 1. So I think a lot of it is spiritual. I think we've allowed so much sin in this nation. We've got politicians who they've just been blinded spiritually and they don't know how to think straight. They don't know how to think sensibly with wisdom. And that's what I think spiritually is part of the problem. If I'm just looking at it through a non biblical lens, some of it just seems so crazy. That, like I said, Senator Thorpe, the rhetoric that comes out of her mouth, a lot of it doesn't make sense. It is divisive, it's dividing the nation. Even when she's talking about Indigenous issues, she still skirts the truth, and she exaggerates so many of the issues that are going on. And I don't think she is really helping Indigenous issues at all in this nation anyway, and definitely not helping by tying herself to the Palestinian movement. And then when you've got, like I said, Elbow, who takes him days to admit that, hey, this was terrorism that was acted out on this nation, on this land, and he still can't call it out for days later. That's just ridiculous. What kind of leader is that? What kind of prime minister is that? And then I just want to go through another article. I won't bring it up. I'll just talk about this other article about from police commissioner, the current police commissioner, Webb, Karen Webb from New South Wales. This headline says, could have done things differently. Police commissioner says after recent controversy. She's talking about what happened with what's his name? Adrian Knight, the senior constable who was charged after he tasered the 95-year-old great grandmother. So yeah, Karen Webb has told Nine News that she could have done some things differently, including her actions after the senior constable Christian White was charged with manslaughter. Webb spoke out about the sacking of White, which she's faced criticism from Claire Nolan's and Alan's family. While White was found guilty, it took her so long to actually get up. It took her far too long to get out and initially speak about the incident. She says, I understand how upset her family are, but equally I have to follow a process, the legal process. White was sacked a week after being found guilty of manslaughter. Webb also said she could have done some things differently when asked about people questioning her leadership. She goes on to say, I can't change that now. Really, I'm looking forward, already thinking about what are our areas of focus for 2025. The largest group of new police recruits are a focus for the commissioner for the new next year, as well as cracking down on domestic violence and gang violence. So when Webb says that she wants to focus on the new police recruits because they've had the largest group of new police recruits, I think it's in New South Wales history. Queensland have also had the same. They've had the largest group of new police recruits in history as well. The fact is that poor leadership over the last decade or so drove out so many experienced and wanting to be dedicated police officers because they felt disenchanted and disenfranchised with the systems that we both had in place. Because people who should not be in leadership, many of our top tier leaders within Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria just shouldn't be there anyway. We've had, I've spoken before a number of times how we've had managers instead of actual leaders. And to me, that's what Karen Webb is. She's just been a manager. She's just been someone who's been able to write a good resume. It wouldn't surprise me if she's mainly there because of, DEI. And I'm not against at all, not against female leadership in policing. But so many officers, so many female police seem to be able to fail upwards so much of the time. And it wouldn't surprise me, just my opinion, if Karen Webb was one of those. Even now, she's had a number of failures over the last couple of years, still kept in place as the police commissioner. Our former police commissioner here in Queensland, Katarina Carroll, she had, how many failures did she have? How many? It was embarrassing how many failures she had under her watch, and yet it was nothing. She was just allowed to continue on her $600,000 a year paycheck, and no repercussions for her failures. And her failures were like weekly, constantly. So yeah, people like Karen Webb can talk about their influx of new police recruits, but they are only having all these new police recruits because they've had so much leadership failures over the last couple of years. They have pushed out good officers, pushed out experienced officers, and now you've got to ask, so what is the quality of police officer that we're going to get? If we have poor quality in our leadership in police, what kind of police recruits are we going to get? But this is the same thing that's happened in our federal government. We've had poor quality in prime ministers lately, and Elbow was definitely one poor quality prime minister. ScoMo, another one. And then what happens when you have a poor quality in your prime ministers, in political leaders? Well, then we keep getting people like Lydia Thorpe or that Payman come in, who shouldn't even be in politics in any way. They're ideologists. They're protesters. They're not actually politicians who want to uplift and build the nation of Australia. Anyway, this is all just my opinion. You let me know what you think. Is there something we can do to help the epidemic of poor leadership in this nation? I'm not sure. You let me know. I'm Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope.
They just fuel a desire that will take me higher. I'm on fire because nothing's gonna bring me down. Nothing's gonna bring me down. Nothing's gonna stop me now. No one deals to be done. No nothing's gonna just focus on the goal. Nothing's gonna stop me now. Nothing's gonna hold me down. Got my eye on the prize. Got my eye